Welcome to the Connectable podcast.
The Connectable podcast starts in 3, 2, 1.
There you go. So today's guest is the founder of the Baleka Run Club, Jon Parker. What's going on, man?
Everything's good. I'm having a good time over here by myself, hoping that children don't bust in the door. It'll be a meme, I guess, or something, but everything's good.
That's good. We're used to it. I have a 2-year-old daughter. Deb's actually a teacher, a high school teacher. And so I'm sure you've seen, Deb, I'm sure you've seen plenty of kids run in the background of Zooms.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I've seen all kinds of things.
Yeah, I bet.
Little kids, dogs, grandma's chasing little kids, parents hopping in to see, like, are you in class? Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? And then leaving, like, oh yeah, all kinds of things.
Okay.
You got
me beat.
The show goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. The show goes on. So even if your kids run in, it's all good.
Okay.
So we like to, obviously the name of the show is Connectable. And so we like to talk a little bit about how we're connected with our guests when we kick the show off.
Okay.
Obviously this is our first time ever meeting, but, and this is going to sound really weird, but man, I've followed you on different podcasts that you've been a part of for a while. I know that sounds, I never know how to say that because it always sounds creepy to me when I say it. So I've been following you basically for a long time.
Okay.
And,
all right.
No, man, like going back to your, like the Lions and Liars podcast, you were a part of some of the 4th district stuff, don't do that, bro, all that stuff, man. So I've been a big fan. But I have to say, like, the stuff that you're doing with your run club is really something that really caught my eye because, I used to work for a nonprofit and we actually did some run club type stuff where we were in the inner city of Sacramento working with some schools and doing these after school running programs because we saw the benefit of running. And it's an easy thing. You don't need equipment. And so once I saw what you were doing with this run club, I'm like, oh, like we would love to have him on the show. So anyways, that's where the connection is. And so, now, man, we just want to hear a little bit more about what you're doing with the run club and how it started, why it started. And am I saying the name right? Is that, how do you say?
I'm about to, it's Baleka.
I wasn't even close, Deb.
No, it's a different situation, man. So, I have to do a better job of like doing the phonetics or something like that. So
I got you.
Get it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So how did the whole thing come about? When did you get started? Why did you start it?
Yeah, so 2019, I did the Two Oceans Marathon in South Africa. So I was living in Cape Town, South Africa for about 2 years. My wife does infectious disease research, so she was doing HIV and tuberculosis research out there. And so I was pretty much stay-at-home dad, was doing some counseling here and there, over the internet or whatever the case may be. And I just was like, I didn't know I was going to do the Two Oceans. It was just somebody asked me to raise money for a, what do you want to say? It was a kind of like I'm trying to describe it, and it's not like it's a foreign thing. These things happen in America all the time. It was like a innovation hub. There you go. It's the word.
Oh,
so basically, so they were trying to create a space where students can come, have free internet. They could learn trades. They could learn about IT and AI and all these different things or whatever. But of course, they needed funds to do it. So they were like, you can either do this bike race that's like 300 kilometers, or you can run. And I was like, I thought biking would be a good idea, but then I was like, that's a long time to be biking. So I decided just to hop on the run thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm an athlete. I could, I exercise a little bit. It couldn't be that difficult. Not realizing it was only a half marathon that I did, but 13 kilometers, I don't know how many miles that is. It was just like, no, more than 13, it's like 20 something kilometers, right? So just the idea of like needing to train and prepare, because I felt like, all right, I did a 5K at one time, about died after I did the 5K, and that was years and years ago. So I said, if I'm gonna do more than 5, I might need to get to it. So in preparation for running the marathon, I was hanging out in this particular township in Cape Town called Guguletu. In Guguletu, I was, just hanging out with folks. I was doing some work with the youth there. And once they heard I was training for the marathon, we would just meet at a particular park. And it started off with me and a couple of the young adults there. And then it kind of just grew and grew and grew to where we got like 25, 50 kids and young adults and adults just showing up just to train with me, just encouraging me to run or whatever. And so it grew from just this idea of helping me run to being like a club, to being like a family, to being like a social network. And so I decided, well, you know, if this is going to be a thing, let's make it a thing. Like, let's make it something. And when I would run around in Cape Town, and especially in Guguletu or whatever, I would hear the kids yell out, Baleka, Baleka. And so I was like, Baleka, that either means play or hurry up or whatever the case may be. So then I asked someone, they're like, oh, Baleka means to run in Kosa or to sprint in Zulu. The language is there or whatever. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, we'll make a run club and we'll just call it Baleka Run Club. It's redundant. It's the run club or the sprint run club, but it just has a nice ring to it. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, so it ended up being, you know, me and my wife, we packing up lunches, we taking snacks, we eating food, doing the water thing, we fueling up, you know, energizing the kids. And then it goes to, okay, now we're doing hikes and we're on mountains and we're doing like climbs for like hours. And we're throwing my background of mental health in. So we're having like conversations on top of these mountains about mental health and families and love and relationships. And it just became a thing, man. And it just went from training from running to like, we're family, you know?
Wow.
That's amazing. That's pretty dope.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just, well, and just the, obviously, you know, this is without being said, but just the physical benefits, the psychological benefits of just keeping them active. And, you know, like you said, just having those talks, like just that's like whole mind, body, soul. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Really
It kind of
cool.
ended up being like that. Like, I'm sorry, I cut you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was like intentional. From once I realized this could be something, I was like, all right, well, let me look at some facets of like wellness, and incorporate wellness intentionally into all the things that we do. And so the program coordinator that's still out there, I mean, she's a Le Cordon Bleu chef. So, you know, when we got the kids at the house, and it's not kids, it was teenagers too and young adults, but when we have the folks at the house, it's like, okay, let's find some cheap ingredients and let's make smoothies. Okay, let's find this and then teach you how to plate. Let's, you know, she's just using her skills to try to figure out how to give the kids skills. I'm like, all right, well, let's talk about community development. Let's talk about all these things that we can do so that we can be intentional about our time and then focus on these areas of wellness, whether it's physical wellness, emotional wellness, whatever, and be intentional about it.
That's amazing. Well, on our last show, and we actually posted it today. What's today? Today's the 6th, April 6th.
Yes.
I didn't even plan it, but it worked out well because we suggested people follow you on that post. Okay. But that whole episode was about health and how, you know, the mental health, the emotional health, the physical health all work together. So since you kind of have like a counseling background, like how is it possible to have one of those things be a little bit off and be fully okay in those other areas, or do they all have to really work together to be the best version of yourself?
I will say yes and no, because we have the ability to overcompensate, right? So I ruptured my Achilles tendon a couple years back, so several years back playing basketball, right? So when I'm training for this half marathon, I'm having IT band issues, and I'm like, man, what the heck? I've never had that before. Come to find out when I go to the physical therapist, oh, your hamstrings don't work. Like you're like, I didn't even know there was 3 what are these things called back here, glutes. I thought it was just one. So I got 3 glutes, none of my glutes are firing, so now my hamstrings are working overtime and I'm getting cramps all the time, all because I didn't do rehab after I ruptured my Achilles. And so I'm hooping, I'm softball, I'm doing all these different things for years, never having rehab that because my body was able to compensate for this little small calf muscle that atrophied when I was in that cast, you know, getting my leg repaired. And so our mind, body, soul connections the same way. We can be like super deficient in our emotional mental health, but we have the perseverance to press through. But mind you, we're stressed, our hair's falling out, our teeth falling out, we're sick, we're getting headaches, all these things are happening. We can be super healthy and strong and be able to push a car down the street. But anytime somebody honks at a red light, we're flashing, we smashing, we're going crazy, we having like all these visceral reactions because our emotional health isn't good, you know? And so we can be good in these areas spiritually, you know, emotionally, physically, but if they're not in tune, our body will make up in other ways, but eventually it'll tell on us.
Oh yeah.
That's crazy.
I need to have you as a guest in my classes, my PE classes, so you can explain to the kids because they're sick and tired of me trying to explain that to them. Well, you explained it much better, just how like, you know, just the physical benefits of exercise and, you know, just the mental part of it. all that. But that's crazy. I didn't realize. Sorry, I'm thinking now about what you said about your injury and how you said that you didn't do your rehab the right way. So your glute muscles weren't firing. And then now, okay, so was it, sorry, go back. I already blanked. Your hamstrings were doing all the work?
All the work.
Oh my gosh.
All the work. Yeah.
Isn't that
And
crazy?
so it's wild. And I used to get IT issues, but I didn't know it was IT issues. I just thought, like, I played 6 games of basketball in a row. I'm young enough. I should be able to do this. And my whole, from my knee all the way up to my glutes would hurt. And I'm like, man, what the heck is that? So I would just sit out a day or two, then get back to it, and just kept wearing myself down. But I didn't notice until I started playing softball more consistently. And I would pull a hammy, or I would just get cramps. I would have to wrap my legs up and do the icy hot. I'm like too young for all of this, right? You know what I'm saying? But I'm the 20-year-old smelling like being gay and icy hot, like on the field. And just come to find out, it was overcompensating, and it wasn't hydration. It was the fact that my glutes weren't doing anything, and I'm sprinting, I'm running to first base, and I'm going home, and I'm outfield chasing balls, and my bottom was like, nah, bro, what you doing?
Yeah. So once you figured out that, or you made that connection that everything was, not firing properly, what kind of stuff did you do to like make your glutes stronger and make everything work, better together?
So my PT, it started off with doing like lunges and squats type things, or doing like bridges where I'm on my back and I'm squeezing my hips in the air. A lot of like roller therapy with the foam rollers and tennis balls on my hip sockets, stretches, one leg, like balancing things. It starts off on one leg, then it goes to close my eyes on one leg, then it goes to this little foam pad that you balance on that makes your world do all kind of crazy stuff. So it was really just doing, wall sits, all these things to kind of just get my bum activating, you know what I'm saying? Just to make it go and to make it work. And my IT, like the marathon, I did the marathon and I had to limp the last like hour and a half, like the last 11K. Because my training went out the window. You're in the race and everybody, boom, you're running.
Yeah.
And I'm like, keep your pace. I was going to run 2K, walk a K, run 2K, walk a K. I shot out of there, probably did 8K straight.
Yeah.
It was done. And so I learned, and again, I didn't go to physical therapy until after the marathon, right? So I'm learning all these things in hindsight, but it was just one of those things where, like, not realizing, like, just again, the deficiency in this one area was causing so much problems. And so now, I bike a little more than I run, but when I'm not doing stuff with people or whatever the case may be to get around or whatever, I used to just run wherever I'm going, but just preserving my body and knowing that, hey, like, you got to be wise,
Right.
Oh, for sure. I've done 4 marathons. None of them were pretty. But the first one I did, like you're all excited, right? You do the training because you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this the right way.
Yeah.
And then you do, and it's like, oh, that was actually kind of fun on race day. The training sucks, but like the race was actually pretty fun. And then the next year you do it, at least for me, I'm like, I got this. I'm an athlete. I don't need to worry about the training. Well, I ended up hurting my knee. And unfortunately, it was the same year that at that time, my dad was 68, 69, and it was his first marathon. He ended up beating me by 15 minutes. And my family was waiting at the finish line with a sign that said, no one's like concerned about my knee. Everyone's like, had this massive sign that says, your 65-year-old dad just smoked you.
Wow.
That was, I'll say this though, it made my knee pain go away. I'm like, that doesn't hurt nearly as much as what you guys did to me emotionally. But
right.
But you're right, man. It's like, it's a weird thing. Like once it starts to go, once that physical thing starts to go, it's like, it's just a killer. And then it just kind of derails the entire run or whatever exercise you're doing. So that training's super important, and being aware of where your body's at is super important too. So
absolutely.
So how long did it take for you to get kind of back to a place where you felt strong and all good?
I mean, the physical therapist like, okay, you can run 2K now, you can run 3K now, maybe push it up to 5 or whatever. But I think it was so trail running, I picked up while I was in South Africa too, right? This whole thing, my life went from basketball to softball to now I'm outdoors. Now I'm running, I'm doing all these things. And I found out that trail running actually is better for me and how I'm made, because when you're running on the trails and you have good trail shoes, your knees, your legs, your joints, they're just kind of all over the place, but you're strengthening things and you're using things as opposed to just beating your knees on the concrete. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so sorry about the noise. I got excited and animated.
No, it's good.
It's just one of those things where that helped strengthen me as well as doing the physical therapy, and it got me off the pavement. And then I started to see my ability to run longer like increased, because I think just all of my body was being my lower body was being used in a way that wasn't necessarily getting activated just by being on the street or whatever. You know, I'm up and down hills, gravel. I mean, I had these shoes and my ankle pretty much touched the ground one time, and I was like, oh, it's a wrap. I'm in this mountain by myself, which was already dumb. Kids don't, adults don't run in the mountains by yourself.
Sure.
But when it hit, I just knew it was going to be over. But I guess the way the shoes were and everything else, probably adrenaline too. I just kept running and nothing happened. I was like, okay, something's going on here.
That's interesting. I don't know about you, Deb. I've never done trail running. I've always wanted to, but man, I'm terrified of snakes. In the area here in Sacramento, I know there's snakes out there waiting for me. So I've never really done it, but that makes a lot of sense what you're saying as far as the physics of it and how your body moves differently than it would on the pavement. That's really interesting.
Right. Well, and just the whole, it's using different muscles. It's kind of one of those things where if you run too much, like you said, on like hard concrete, like just flat, even pavement, like every single day, like your muscles are going to wear down. That's why you should switch it up and do uphill, downhill. And, the whole trail thing, you need to like use, do some type of cross training. I feel like trail running is like the cross training for running if you're doing running only. So that makes sense. Yeah. I wouldn't mind doing trail running. I am not afraid of snakes, rattlesnakes. I do not do rattlesneks.
Yes.
I mean, that's like
no one should.
That's what I'm saying. I don't do any snakes. I want no part. Yeah.
That was always a fear too up there. I'm like, oh, okay, why are you doing this, sir? Again, by yourself. Stop. Just wait till the friends get off work or whatever. And,
right.
Exactly. Well, I always think of what's that movie? 127 Hours. You know that movie where the guy falls in the like the canyon and has this. I'm not man enough to saw my own arm off. Like, if
I would have died.
You know what I'm saying? I'm done.
I would have died. Yep.
Yeah, I had to tell my wife. I was like, just if this happens, that's the last you saw of me, because I'm not getting out of there. I'm not man enough. So hey, let me ask you this. So as far as people here in the States, what was the response like once you kind of launched this program, this run club, and people were able to get involved? Like, were they? I mean, I have a mentor, and he always said, he was the one that came up with this idea of Be Change, and that was the name of the organization, and encouraging people to run marathons, the CIM marathon here in Sacramento, to raise money for different inner city schools that we were working with. And his whole thing was, people will pledge to pain. So if they know you're doing a marathon, they'll pledge to that. But if you're like, hey, I'm gonna, can you donate money? They're like, why? You're not sacrificing anything. So, because you guys are doing the run club and people are running these, different races, like, what has the response been like from people, just around the nation?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had people like suck their teeth and jeer at me, so I think it's pretty good in terms of people aren't upset. But I think it's like a rallying cry, man. I tell the story, say how it started, talk about the work I'm doing back there. And I'm more of a for-profit guy, like just in general when it comes to entrepreneurship. So I was just trying to find different things that I could actually offer to people to buy, right? And so I'm still in a process of getting that figured out. When I was in South Africa, I was doing bandanas made out of shwe, which is a fabric that's made in South Africa that's worn particularly by the Xhosa women, men too. And you just, you buy a whole sheet of fabric and you make your whole outfit out of it or whatever. But I was in Africa and I was looking for bandanas, and all I could find was like American looking Walmart blood and Crip soldier rags. I'm like, why am I in South Africa and this is the only bandana I could find? Like, I'm not here for this. So it kind of started there, and hopefully my goal is to travel to different areas and grab fabrics and kind of do that and try to make bandanas and headwear and stuff like that a thing again, at least as far as exercising or whatever. And so, getting back to the idea of the reception, like I haven't, when I've done pop-up shops, when I've, talked to friends and family, whatever, the stuff it's okay. But I think it's again, like you're saying, the idea and the message, like I'm telling like, like when I was out there, I was going to schools, I was doing pop-up like workshops on, again, taking simple stuff. Instead of eating chips and soda for breakfast, let's get some fruit, spice it up a little, throw a little yogurt in it, something that's relatively cheap. And then you have something tasty that's good for your brain, good for your body, and you'll have energy to last you hopefully to lunch or whatever the case may be. And really just trying to come up with creative ways to engage people in community. I look at it as like for people that go to church, like a small group, instead of being a part of this big giant like organization, it's just 5, 10, 15, 20 of us. We're intentional about knowing each other. We're in each other's lives. We're swapping recipes. We're running, we're walking, we're talking, we're engaging with each other. We know everybody's names and their kids' names. And so that's the part that people are like, oh shoot, like, oh, group accountability. Like, oh, this is the thing that makes sense. Like, oh shoot, tell me more. Okay, how can I be involved? And I usually get people's attention. I tell a story about one of the young ladies who couldn't walk maybe 5 minutes. The first time she joined the group, we were walking up this mountain called Lion's Head. It's about a 2-hour round trip if you just go up to the top, hang out a little bit, and come back down. But she walked about 10 minutes. She was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm here. Like, I'm not walking with you guys. I'm like, oh, okay, well, be safe. We'll be back in like an hour, hour and a half or whatever. So 6 weeks later, and we're not, mind you, we're not training every day. We're not going hard. We're not lifting weights. We decided to climb a mountain. Like Table Mountain is like 7th wonder of the world type of thing. It took us about 7 hours, and it was probably 14 kilometers or something like that. And she did the whole thing. Damn. And it was the idea of like group accountability. We're here for you. We're not going back. We got to go over the mountain. So you got to come with us. We're not, we're not leaving you behind. We're all going to make it together. And something about the camaraderie, something about the joy of accomplishment, something about like knowing that for these last 5 weeks, we've had your back and we got you and we care about you. Like that was the thing. You know what I mean? And so when I tell people that, they're like, oh shoot, like let's figure out how to make this thing work. Like, what can we do? How can we be involved? So.
Right.
Yeah.
That would motivate me for sure. I feel like I'll be too embarrassed if they leave without me. I have to come back and get. So I'm just gonna go. Right.
Here's a helicopter because we can't make it back.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. What are your thoughts about? Oh, because I'm just thinking of. So I like to run a lot too, and Josh does too. And I used to take like aminos or supplements in terms of like extra hydration, extra amino acids in your body, and the stuff that's in Gatorade. So what are your thoughts about those things? Do you do you drink Gatorade? Do you just stick with water? Do you use supplements in terms of like keeping yourself hydrated when running for like long distance?
See, this is where I'm like the abnormality and weirdo type of thing. So I'm O negative blood type, right? And so with O negative, if I load up on B vitamins, I get headaches. So I have to be very careful about a multivitamin, like Gatorades, Power, like any of those things, they're full of Bs. And I didn't notice, and I didn't know until I was an adult. Like I would get headaches all the time as a teenager, just gobbling Gatorade, because that was a thing. Michael Jordan, everybody's, drinking Gatorade. And then I started donating blood in high school. They told me I was O negative. And then as I was an adult, I have a book called Eat Right for Your Blood Type. And it talks about all these things that I was like, yo, all this time I would eat like citrus fruit and just sweat. And like, I thought it was allergies. Like, no, I don't need more of that. My body makes enough of that. You know what I mean? I would eat sunflower seeds and have but the worst gas. And like for a week, because I would eat a whole bag of sunflower seeds, but that stuff becomes poisonous to my body because of my blood type. You know what I mean?
I didn't know that.
I had no clue. That's crazy.
That you have like not have to, but like that you can cater your diet to what your blood type is. Oh my gosh.
That's kind of like what we were talking about on one of our previous episodes, talking about health. Like, I feel like once you start getting into better shape and once you start, placing more emphasis on exercise and health, you start to become more aware of all of those different things. And like, I probably would have no clue about anything Jon just said about the blood type and all that stuff. But like when you start getting more into it, then it's like, you're more aware of those things. So like exercising does just really have a positive effect on every aspect of life. Like you just become more aware of what your body's doing and what your body's saying. It's pretty interesting.
I don't even know my blood type.
Right, bro. A lot of people don't. I only know because I wanted the free snacks in high school. Like I wanted to eat circus animal cookies and orange juice, and I would ditch every class and be like, "Oh, I'm donating blood. Oh, I'm donating blood." And it started off like that. But again, even when I was in South Africa, like not having resources. Like don't get me wrong, like Cape Town's no third world country by any stretch, but it's abject poverty 5 minutes away from the most opulent wealth situation that you will find in the world. You know what I mean? Literally, like people from all over the world vacation and live some sort of lifestyle in Cape Town, and then 10, 20 minutes away, it's literally abject poverty. So what I was trying to do was like figure ways to teach about hydration and all these different things and just try to find what was there. So Camelback and water was for me. We take a couple bars with us, you know what I'm saying? A bunch of oranges, you know what I mean? And just do things that were gonna aid in like the refueling process. And like, you know, a lot of the folks I was running like with were like people that just don't have means, right? And it's like, how did you just do this 7-hour hike and all we brought up was 2 bags of chips because we took a wrong turn and it wasn't supposed to take this long? You know what I mean? And it's just like, well, we got to keep going and it's getting dark, you know? And so just having fuel reserves and different things based on need, I found it like, man, like, okay, I'm doing my body a disservice by not being here and being able to fuel up properly. But I'm also trying to find other ways, like I'm into juicing, like, okay, what kind of like post-run juice can I do, you know, or pre-run this and pre-run that doesn't involve a lot of like supplements and things, because when I go back to Cape Town, I want to be able to replicate these things and like, hey, okay, it's pomegranate season. What does that do? Okay, okay, is that, you know what I mean? Pomegranate was a bougie example, but it's strawberry season, you know, whatever. But trying to find these natural things. And I found a book called The Juicing Bible, and it has some stuff in there too. But even them having access to be able to juice, I'm like, all these luxuries, all these first world problems, like, oh my God, what do I do? But to answer your question, like it's on a basic level, stay hydrated. And then again, body type, like what fuels you and what keeps you going. And for me, I have a frame that's high metabolism. And so even if I drink or eat too much while I'm running, I cramp up real easy, which is weird. You would think it would just burn, but it just sits there for a little bit. And then when it gets activated, it goes. So I'm kind of like, I'm not doing marathons because I don't know if my body, what I'm doing will take it. Like, you know what I mean? I can do 13, 12K or something like that. But when you get past that, I'm just like, I'm not built, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm not doing the supplement stuff or doing this regular, but I'm just trying to train my body in such a way when I get around these folks that I'm doing like them, being like them, eating like them, drinking like them, and that I'm able to show them that you still can maintain and do whatever, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Maybe that's dumb of me to think, but you know.
No, it makes sense to me. Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Josh, you've done a few marathons, right, Josh?
Yeah, I've done 4. And like I said before, they were all ugly. I tell people all the time, like when you do those marathons, I don't know if this is the case for every marathon, but I know the one that I've done here in Sacramento, there's the bus. So the basically the time is 6 hours, right? And you got to complete it within 6 hours. Otherwise they start opening up the streets behind you. And there's this bus that's basically like, that's the bus. Like if you can't make it, hop on the bus and they're going to take
prison van, come get you.
Exactly. It's a prison van. My race is against the bus. I'm like, I can't. And one time I cut it close. I was probably like 5:57. I mean, it was that second year I was really struggling. And my girlfriend, now my wife at the time, we were running together, and she would have beaten me. The only reason she didn't is because there was an older lady that fell down probably about 100 feet before the finish line, and she had to stop. She didn't have to stop, but she's a good person, and stopped to help her up. I'm like, I'm going to take advantage of this. I got to finish this race before her.
You're like, okay, bye.
But no, I've done a few, and but again, I don't do it to the best as far as the nutrition and stuff like that. Like I'll start, eating some of that goo. I usually throw it up later because it just doesn't sit well with me, but it gets me through the race. And shoes wise, I use the same pair of shoes, I think 2 or 3 marathons in a row. It's a dumb thing to do. I wouldn't recommend it. Did you do the same thing?
No, that was the thing, because I had the IT. I mean, I ran my first one, or my only one, the half marathon, in like New Balance 860s, because those are the old man. I'm overpronated, so I needed that arch support. But again, it could be controversial because sometimes we have too much support. Your body, your muscles never develop, which you probably know more about that. You know what I mean? Like it becomes a crutch more so than it becomes a help over time. But like, had I not had those and my limp and everything else that was going wrong, I probably would have been jacked up on that situation.
For sure.
Yeah.
So because the shoes, I mean, that's what they say. Shoes are everything when you're doing those, when the big races, marathons and stuff like that. But it's weird for me, like when the first time I ever did a marathon, like I did the whole thing. I went to a shoe store, they recommended, they watched me walk, and like you said, the pronation, all that stuff. And so they gave me a pair of shoes, and it was great, but I could feel the ground a lot because it was just a thinner. Other people were like, man, I couldn't wear those shoes because I needed to like walk on clouds the entire time. So what are you running now? Like what's your shoe of choice?
So I actually bought some shoes from Kenya called Edna's, ENDA, or ENDA. And so it's kind of like, I bought them because it's a South African company, and it's partially owned by a Black woman. and I wanted to support. So I mean, the ones that I got for long distance running, they feel really good. If I order another pair, I'll go up. I went up half a size, but I might do a full size just because it's a little, the one I bought is a little narrow in the front or whatever.
Sure.
But it's like, to my surprise, I mean, Kenya, they say is the home of runners, and like these shoes are like, they're pretty nice. You know what I mean? And it was only like $100, and they shipped DHL, and it came like in a couple days. And I was very surprised about that. I was like, I was in people's DMs because I saw them on Instagram, and I was in people's DMs like, hey, you ordered these shoes. Did you really order these shoes? Or is this, I'm getting played? Like, is this a bot? You know?
Yeah.
So those are really nice. I still got my 860s. And then I was doing Vibrams for a little while when I was in South Africa.
Okay.
And those, it's kind of hit and miss depending on what you're actually running on or whatever.
Yeah.
But I have some for my trail. I use, what are my trail shoes? Now I got to look at my app. I should know it off the top of my head. Bear with me while I look at my app here.
Yeah, no worries.
But for trails, what are those things? Man, I'm gonna be disappointed when I have to look. I wish I didn't have to look on here.
That's okay. Deb, what do you
do it all the time?
Yep, it's the Brooks Cascadia.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's what I use for that. And then yes, ENDA are the shoes that I got. So the Endas, the New Balance 860s, and the Brooks Cascadias. Is that right? Cascadia, yeah.
Okay.
Those I've had only that one pair of trail shoes for like 2 years now. I mean, of course you don't get a lot of, I'm not running, it's not pavement, so they're not wearing away. Sure. But I mean, them things were sticking. I'm on rocks, I'm on mud. I'm sticking to the ground. I'm gazelle out there. I'm just mobile. And yeah, it's good.
Okay. Deb, what are you running?
I just run in Adidas, whatever shoes I have in my closet, which probably is not good. Jon, have you gotten shin splints before from running?
Not from running. I've, just being an athlete, I've had them minor, and I couldn't imagine what this feels like if it was like a real shin splint. Like I've had there could be more if you keep running, like stop doing what you're doing. Right. But I haven't full on. Yeah,
I totally, I got them really bad in college. Just from training, I played softball in junior college, and just I started running a lot then, like after practices, after games, like I just had a lot of energy, and they hurt so bad that like I had to go to the doctor. They had an x-ray. They're like, yeah, it's a borderline fracture. Like it hurt so bad. It felt like someone was stabbing me in the shin. I know what to do now for if I feel it, and like to rest and whatnot. But yeah, I didn't learn back then. But I'm always curious as to how often other people get them. Maybe that's just the way my body's built. Maybe I just I don't know. And girls we have our hips, and there's a lot of pressure there, and so I don't know if it's more prevalent in girls and guys. I don't know. So I like asking guys if they've gotten shin splints before.
Yeah, I feel like I know friends that have, but I think it's how your body shape is, what you're doing, proper form and technique or whatever. Like people keep trying to get me to change the way I run, but I'm just like, my stride is my stride. It is what it is. Right. But again, I have noticed like when I'm more intentional about run longer strides, pumping my arms a certain way, I cover more ground, I move a little better, and I feel better. But when I think it's because of the way I've been doing, because of this ruptured Achilles, then I notice my IT getting tight and different things or whatever. So it's I think all that stuff is important to know about at least.
Yeah, right. For sure. Yeah. So hey man, I'm going to take this a much more serious direction, but this kind of just popped into my head because we've been talking about running this whole time, but with everything that happened with Ahmaud Arbery, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was pretty close to where you guys are located out in Georgia, right? So obviously being a Black man, but then also being the founder of a running club or a running company, like that had to have been a really strange place to find yourself in when that news broke, right? Like, just can you give some of your thoughts about that whole situation? And I don't know, it's a big question. I kind of waited a long time for that question, but you're obviously super qualified to talk about it. So
yeah. Well, it was weird, man, because I actually, you find the news happen. It became a big deal months after he had been shot or whatever, right? Sure. And initially I didn't know the time frame. So I actually planned to do like we did a Baleka along with Grill ATL, a company that I'm friends with out here. We did a co-branded running tank, and it was like, I run for Ahmaud Arbery, I breathe for George Floyd, and the other one is I am a man, like a old school Black saying from the civil rights movement or whatever. And so part of what I wanted to do was I wanted to go to Brunswick and do a run there in memory, you know. And so the whole idea was going to be, I run where I belong where I run. And it's just like, we're gonna take a bunch of people and we're just gonna hit the streets, and we're gonna run, we're gonna do whatever, you know, and not be like protesting like that, but just like, yo, like, we're here and we're not gonna be bullied or intimidated into not being in spaces, you know what I'm saying? Because it makes other people uncomfortable. So not, I would say foolishly, in the sense that because I didn't know the history of the place and I wasn't whatever, we took the trip to Savannah, Brunswick, because, you know, it's a maybe an hour, some change away from Savannah. So my goal when we went to Savannah, I was going to go scout the land, but I actually went on a run one day, and I just felt like I went on a run. Mind you, I'm in Savannah. I'm not even in Brunswick, but it's, you know, where I was, same kind of vibe. You're like, okay, what's going on with this neighborhood? What's happening? It was an Airbnb, so you're in a neighborhood as opposed to, you know, a hotel or whatever. But I just, every time a car passed me, my heart would beat fast. Every time a car passed, I'm looking at the driver to see if we're making eye contact and see if they mean me harm. I had to take my headphones off because, like, I want to hear somebody coming from behind me. And then once I found out the details that these people were like on Facebook and Facebook Messenger and doing all these things and tracking him down and following him and boxing him in, I was like, bro, like, this isn't wise. You know, after the fact, it wasn't wise to do. But while I was doing it, bro, I had to stop I was just doing a simple 5K, maybe 25, 30 minutes, but I got 10, 15 minutes in and I had to go back home. And I was spooked because I was like, you don't know, you know what I'm saying? And all the safety that I felt and all the courage and all that I had, I was like, you know what, bro, like, yeah, anything could happen out here. You know what I mean? And I don't know what's going on and I don't know these people. And so I hate to admit it, but I had to go home, had to cut it short. And then again, once I found out the news that, these people were like tracking his movements and typing and texting. And I'm like, any app, what is it, Nextdoor, whatever these apps, people could have been next, hey, who is this random guy running through our neighborhood? What's going on here? And next you know, I'm getting pulled up and somebody's asking me questions, and they, you know, and there could go me. So I think it was surreal in a sense of wanting to be more vigilant about, again, I run where I am, I belong where I run, whatever. But then also realizing the, you know, the unfortunate state that is America at that time, you know, or was America at that time, and just having to put a lot of runs on pause, having to run with people, having to do all of these things that I didn't have to do. But I used to run in South Africa by myself in dangerous places where people come up missing, there's snakes, there's animals and all these different things. I had no fear. Because again, I'm in a place where people look like me. And if, you know, if I got to run, I run. If I tussle with you a little bit and I'm out of there. But here you come here, everybody is strapped. We in the South, everybody's holding something. And it's just like, regardless of how right I may be and what rights I feel like I have, this person, these people, this neighborhood, these folks may not want me around, and they're gonna shoot first, ask questions later. And it for like several months, bro, like I was just in a place where I can only run in daylight or on this particular path or in this particular area. And it puts a cramp on my style because I like to explore, I like to adventure, but I'm like, I hit a wrong turn, I'm on a path and I'm in somebody's private property, next thing they shoot me or whatever, you know, you just don't know.
Right.
So it just made things real uncomfortable. It did good for me in terms of running with people and building that community, but it was unfortunately we had to come together under said circumstances in order to be safe in numbers, you know. And I mean, I started seeing people in my own neighborhood. At the time I was living in East Point in Georgia, which is, you know, right next to Atlanta, College Park Airport, very safe or whatever. But I'm seeing women, I can see they're strapped. They're running strapped because they're like, yo, like, who knows what's going on right now? You know, this whole political climate that we don't have to talk about necessarily, but it was just like a lot happening at that time.
Yeah.
Just didn't know, you know, it made me miss Cali a lot. I was like, okay, this is why I miss home turf, because South is something else, you know.
Man, it's such a bummer too, because, you know, so many times even on this show, we've talked about how, you know, like I feel my most creative after a run, or during my run, I get all these ideas, or Deb's like, hey, I feel way less stressed after I run. But like, that's not even an opportunity in that situation that you had, because you couldn't let your mind just kind of drift off because you had all of these other stresses and fears that were running through. And it's like, it kind of takes out like a huge part of, you know, the benefits of running. And it's out of your control, which sucks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I had an anxiety attack, bro. That time I was running to scout out the situation, I had an anxiety. I do this for a living, so I'm like, oh shoot, heart palpitation. Oh, this is beyond my regular. Like, oh shoot, I'm nervous. Oh, I'm getting a little clammy. Like, oh man, I'm paranoid. Like, oh shoot, and I had to get back in the house, and it was trash, bro. Like I was trashed. It was a wrap. It was a wrap.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But
just.
then,
Go, sorry, Deb.
yeah. No, I just like, I mean, not to, I mean, this is me just kind of thinking out loud, like it's 2021, and then 2020. It's like I don't know. I mean, we all are, but like, I'm just disappointed in that's how it has to be sometimes in terms of like your fear. And it's just, too bad. I mean, that goes without saying, but yeah, because you should be able to just do that without having an anxiety attack.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, I feel you too, Josh. I'm like just being stifled. Like it literally was such a impactful thing that I lost. Like my mojo. Like it was like I can't. Like I'm done. I'm tapped out.
Well, I mean, I've even mentioned this a couple of episodes ago. I'm like, it's for me, sometimes it's like if I'm having like a creative block or something, it's almost like if I took a ball of yarn and I took one end and I start running, and then that thing's just unwinding behind me, and then at the end of the run, it's all unwound. I'm good. But like, imagine carrying that ball of yarn with you the entire time because you can't relax, you can't focus, and like you said, you're having anxiety attacks. Like the benefits of running is so that your anxiety level goes down, but the whole time you're running. Yeah, I'm sure your times were amazing.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? But
get this run over with. Yeah,
exactly. But it's such a bummer, and it's one of those things I think people take for granted because one of the beauties of running is that it requires some shoes and you're pretty much good to go. It's not like it's this, it's not like golf. It's not like, baseball, football. These are sports that require more equipment or specific fields. You can pretty much run anywhere. But if that's even taken away because of the circumstance and the climate of where we're at right now, it's like you throw up your hands. Like, what do you do? I mean, I can't even imagine the frustration that comes along with that.
Yeah, no, I was crazy because at the time I was battling, I had a little bout of seasonal affective disorder. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. Interestingly enough, the title is sad, but basically it's like a depression that gets brought on when seasons change. And usually it's going from fall to winter going into spring, and people have like recessed lighting and type of lights that they have so that their body feels as if it's more sunlight, that it's, it's brighter outside. And so when I was coming back from South Africa, we came back earlier than we were supposed to. It was a lot of stuff, unfinished business. I didn't get to say goodbye to a lot of people. Our visa was up. We had to get out the country. But when I came back, we were getting ready to go into summer there because it's opposite hemisphere. Come back in November, it's cold. I can't get outside. The news is crazy. Stuff is happening. And I just found myself for like 3 months. I lost 30 pounds and I'm skinny as it is. I lost 30 pounds. Wasn't getting out of bed. I got 2 toddlers. I'm like, yo, y'all can eat Cheerios all day. Like, I'm gonna just be in the bed. Like, it just was, you know what I'm saying? It was just bad. And then I can't go out because of the weather, you know what I mean? And then can't go out because of shenanigans. Right. And it just became a thing where until the spring came full term, until the summer came, from November till about March, man, I was just in a bad place. And then Ahmaud Arbery stuff. And it's just like realizing like, man, I knew conceptually what was going on. I figured it was depression, didn't really put 2 and 2 together, the seasonal affective disorder. And I was like, oh shoot, seasons change. I've been in this bed. This is happening. I feel a certain way. Spring hits, and all of a sudden when I can get outside, I start to feel a little better. I'm feeling myself. But even my appetite didn't come back to like maybe 4 or 5 months ago. Like I went like 8 months just not being hungry, just not being, you know what I'm saying? The depression lifted, but some of the symptoms were still around. So it took the whole environmental wellness, like get outside, smell some flowers, run, get in the environment. Emotional wellness. All right, let me talk to people. Let me have conversations. Let me, get with my family. Let me do whatever. Spiritual, wellness. Let me do my practices. Let me pray. Let me do what I do. Let me be, be with folks and just have intentional conversations about, heart to heart touch points. And had to just do all of these things to get back to a place where I can at least get outside, get out of the bed, take care of my family. Okay, now I got to get back to work because I end up getting a job. Then let me go to work, get on this train, get back home, and figure out how long I'm gonna lay in this bed. And it's just, you just never know until that stuff gets taken away from you, or you just go through a bout of something, how important it is.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, that's the cool thing about this run club is that the more people that get involved, I'm sure that there's a lot of people that were in the same place that you were, or maybe they still are, and hopefully, I'm sure you've heard some great stories of people that, maybe weren't big runners or, kind of did running every once in a while and then kind of got involved and were inspired by what you guys are doing. And then all of a sudden now it's like they feel better, they're physically in better shape. Like, I'm sure you hear a ton of stories like that, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Again, we just recently moved from Atlanta to now I'm in Gainesville, Florida. And so what I was trying to do in Atlanta before we left is like be intentional about creating pockets of people. So we're doing postpartum moms pushing their strollers in this particular area called the Beltline. So when they're getting exercise, they're getting their bodies back right after the baby comes, but then they're also dealing with their mental health because they're talking, they're having intentional conversations in the group, and they're just like becoming family, right? And so what I did was intentionally just creating those subgroups, and having these people meet under this pretext of, postpartum moms, postpartum dads. What else did we have? We had couples, I would lead walks and hikes and runs with couples, and just doing all these different things to where we have these touch points of having this thing in common, but then also being intentional about caring for each other, checking in on each other, building family. And that has had so much impact that I'm getting a little choked up, but it's just like hearing these stories of like, I don't have to be the lead runner. I don't have to be no, maybe come for first, I'm not a postpartum mom. Like, okay, listen, I brought y'all together so y'all can meet, so y'all can hang out, so y'all can kick it, so y'all can walk these strollers. Boom, I pass the baton, y'all do what y'all got to do. All right, I'm with these group of teenagers that all, live in the same neighborhood, but maybe they beef and maybe stuff is happening. All right, we're going to get together. We're going to have these conversations. Boom, now y'all go do what you do. And so just seeing like, again, being the touch point of taking one group or one person's hand to the next person and just watching it grow and watching it expand and seeing people have family and feel that love. And it's the best thing ever, man. And not feeling like I have to be a part of every single thing and be the savior guy. Like, no, it's like, just make the connections, get the people together. If you make it, they will run. You know what I'm saying? So if I make the group, they'll run,
Yeah, I love that.
Great. Yeah, it's been great.
That's awesome. Well, I think it's great that that's what you're doing and putting that together and creating that community for everyone. And it's just good for their, like I said at the beginning, mind, body, and soul. And that's awesome because a lot of people need it. They don't know they need it until they do it or try it or someone makes them do it. And then it's like, okay, this is exactly. I think it's what everybody needs. So thank you for starting that.
Nah, no problem.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
This is maybe a different podcast, but I'm so interested in the couples running group. I imagine that's probably saved some marriages.
Oh, listen, mine too. Like it is. Yeah, no, because and the reason why I recognize, and y'all have to tell me, I got stories for days and I talk, so you can always feel free to stop me. But one of the ways in which I realized the power of this running and this being outdoors and he's doing these different things. Again, when I was overseas, I had friends that would come visit, and guys, my friends that would come visit, we'd be out there running, and then we just started having these intentional conversations. And they were unintentional, these unintentional conversations that had so much depth. Like, bro, I didn't know you for X, Y amount of years, and until you came to visit me on the southern part of this world, and we got on this mountain, and maybe it was near death, maybe it could be a cougar, like who knows what's going on, but like something about this time, something about being on top of this mountain looking down, they just started opening up. And these are dudes, like, we don't do that very well, or very often, unless it's like dire straits. But it was just like, I was like, yo, there's something to this. And I feel like something about either the endorphins or just being together or whatever the case may be, it just dawned on me, like, I think this is a thing, you know what I mean? And so like with the married couples, even, we're doing small little, like 30-minute, maybe a whole hour circuit, whatever we're doing, going up waterfalls, whatever the case may be. But it's just like, but we're also like, hey, how are y'all doing? Hey, let's check in. Hey, somebody slipped, picked you up. Let's, whatever, and being together and having that time. And again, I think that open the air, the outdoors, whatever it does to people, inhibitions lower, and everybody's just free and having these good conversations. We take a snack, we having wine and cheese on top of here. Like, all right, well, we can't do the steep stuff, we're gonna do that. But you know what I'm saying? We got to chill out on the way down or whatever. But like just doing all these things, and it's just like, yo, like, you're right. Like they're like, oh, this is what is going to help save my marriage. You know what I mean? And it's I've seen tremendous results from it for sure.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, we could probably have this conversation forever too, but man, we want to be respectful of your time. So before we get out of here, we'd like to do something called a connection suggestion. basically if there's a brand, organization, person that you want to give a shout out to, that you feel like our audience should be connected with. I mean, if you have a couple people, that'd be great. We should have, we didn't tell you this ahead of time. We probably should have. I say this every time and I never do it, but here on the spot, here you go.
Okay. One is Dorsey Healthy Living. It's a young guy out of Atlanta, Georgia. He does meal prep, exercise, workout plans that are specifically catered to the individual. And I just met up with him recently. And I'm excited about like his work with helping people come up with individual plans to kind of meet their health goals and their health needs. Awesome. So we trying to work together. We probably got a Mother's Day 5K coming up if we can get things done, like a virtual one in time or whatever.
Nice.
But I'm excited about him. Oh man. I mean, if anybody wants to, check out the Enda, situation, and see if you want to get a pair of shoes from them, it might be good to check out again. Order size up, definitely at least a half a size up. In my experience, to be able to depend on your foot size or whatever. I'm trying to think. Again, I would check out the Eat Right for Your Blood Type. If you know your blood type, check out that book, just in the sense of seeing how your body responds. Even all these years thinking that like spinach was the go-to for the is it calcium? No, not calcium. Iron. But collard greens is just a little bit better sometimes than the actual, who don't like collard? Well, people don't like collard greens, but I'm like, it's in my DNA to like collard greens, I think, you know what I'm saying? So, like, okay, and so just finding this little tips and tricks on how to like naturally build yourself up, if you can, and avoiding certain things if you need to. Man, I think that's it, man. I wish I'm trying to think. I'm looking around my cabinets. So,
Perfect.
But yeah.
No, that's awesome. And then where can they follow you guys on social media, website, all that stuff?
Yeah. So it's Baleka, BALEKA runclub.com. And same thing on the socials, Baleka Run Club on Instagram. I got to do better. I'm at a place where I'm trying to do more than show, but in this era of social media and posts, and you're not real unless you got a blue check or whatever the case may be, I'm having a hard time because I don't have a committee. It's me and my cousin and my friend in South Africa. But we're there. We got stuff there. We got posts going on. If anybody wants to do social media stuff for us, hey, more than happy to do it. But or just have ideas. But I think we're there. Twitter is usually just a tweet from the Instagram. You know what I'm saying? So it's, but that's where you can find us. info@balekarunclub.com is the email for me.
Cool.
Perfect. Yeah, definitely check out their stuff. I actually have a couple of tank tops I just bought from you guys a little while ago.
Yes.
I don't think Deb does, but that's all right. I'm just a little bit of a better co-host. That's not a problem.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's okay.
He really is.
I got you. Well, listen, man. Like you got to tell me this. It's not prototype, but that was like our first run, and so we were, figuring out stuff, and I think it holds up pretty well. I think it's be okay, but let me know if it doesn't work out. But I'll be more than happy to get back in the lab and create something else for you, man. So
that's awesome.
It holds up for you, man.
No, the first run I did 10 miles in it, and it was awesome. Yeah, it was perfect, held up, and it kept me cool, which was the best part. So that stuff's really dope. So make sure you guys check that out. You guys can follow us at Connectable Podcast on Instagram, at Connectable Pod on Twitter, at Connectable Podcast on Facebook and YouTube, and obviously on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all those places. But man, Jon, this has been a lot of fun, man. Like I said, we could have kept you on for like another 2 hours, but but man, we appreciate everything you're doing in the community and in the run clubs and all that stuff. So man, we'll keep following you and just keep it up, man. We appreciate it.
Okay, I might have to come to SAC, man, and chase you down in one of these marathons, man. So
hey, let's do it.
Chase your dad down.
Yeah. I'll follow you too.
Okay.
I'll be on the bus passing you guys. So
okay, there you go.
All right, man. We appreciate it.
Okay, all right, Deb. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching the show. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button to get a new episode every week. We'll see you next time on the Connectable Podcast.